Secondly, his views, his political outlook was pure New Labour, and so was and remains mine. And thirdly, because he was a very effective Prime Minister, and I admired that. I like effectiveness. I like people who agree with me, and I like people who are nice and decent, and he was all those three things. Can we stop now?
Marginals are being literally bought up by Ashcroft. It's the biggest affront to British democracy that I have ever known in my life. We know that in marginal seats, the more tightly run races, people know that each vote counts for more because it's going to have a greater impact in determining the result. Then, in a sense, what's happening is that the Tories are buying these seats below the radar. We simply do not have the funds. We don't have millions and millions and millions of pounds as the Conservatives do. You know, the fact is that we are, we are David in this sort of fight between David and Goliath. That's what it is. That's how it is.
I think the point about Lord Ashcroft is that on the third attempt to give him a peerage by the Conservative Party, he was only able to accept it on condition that he became a fully fledged tax-paying British citizen. And now we discover, 10 years on, that that hasn't been the case. So in a sense, he's been sitting in the House of Lords on false pretences.
Lord Ashcroft only became a member of the House because he promised in writing to become a permanent resident in this country, which meant paying full UK taxes. But he then changed that undertaking, pledging instead to become a long-term resident. That allowed him to avoid paying taxes on his substantial overseas earnings.
So do you see that Ashcroft has come out now?
Yes, it's been flushed out. Yeah.
Flushed out?
It's been driven out.
Why is it so different of Ashcroft to Cohen or to Lord Bull?
Because he's the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. Secondly, he was, having been rejected by the Independent Committee twice, when he was given a peerage by the Conservatives. The third time, he was only allowed to take it on the condition that he became a fully tax-resident citizen of the United Kingdom. And it now transpires that he didn't keep to that deal, and they've concealed it for the last 10 years. And now it's been flushed out, and they've had to come clean. And worst of all, he says, I'm going to put it right, but only if the Conservatives win the next election, as if that should make any difference. If that was the basis on which he was given the peerage in the first place, it should be right to comply with that condition, whoever wins the election, Conservatives or Labour.
Lord Ashcroft in private plays to his Bond villain image. Was David Cameron too frightened to take him on? Too awed by his work in the marginals, which Tory strategists all think would make the difference at the general election and deliver them victory?
My Lord Mayor Secretary, Secretary of
Praise, silence for grace, by the chaplain to the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor.
We give our thanks for all the mercies we receive, and in this turning topsy-turvy world, we ask for resolution, courage, grace, that from the turmoil of our times, new hopes might spring, which lead to lives restored, made new.
There have been furious clashes at Prime Minister's questions over the government's handling of the British Airways strike. David Cameron accused Gordon Brown of being weak because the strike is being organised by the Unite Union, the Labour Party's biggest financial backer.
The Tories have highlighted the £11 million which Unite has given Labour in the past 3 years. But who's that man on the masks? It's Charlie Whelan, friend of, advisor to and paid campaigner for Gordon Brown.
Charlie Whelan and Lord Ashcroft are exactly the same. One is the Baron of the trade unions, and the other one is the Baron of Belize.
As political director of the Union Unite, he's now spending his members millions to help his friend get re-elected.
I welcome what they're doing in helping organisation across the country. The problem is that Charlie can't help but step out of his nominal organisational role and go around the media the whole time, talking both about himself, his role, his union, his relationship with the Prime Minister, which is just dreadful for Gordon. It brings back all those old ghosts from his past and makes them salient again.
It must also bring back the ghosts from your past.
It does a bit, but that's sort of incidental. It was one of the things I thought about when the Prime Minister asked me to rejoin the government after I'd been in Brussels for 4 years. You know, do you really want to come back into the suffocating, rather claustrophobic atmosphere of the Westminster Village? And I thought, well, actually, yes. I suppose I wanted to give myself another chance to get it right.
It's about the future of our economy. It's about the future of our society. It's about the future of our country. It's the most important general election for a generation.
I mean, everyone knows that it's a sort of fairly hidden affair. It depends on the question.
Dan, can we get the wording of education council which is checked by about the parents and schools?
JH. Who's JH? John Heaton. Yes. John Denner. Yes. Jim Knight. No. You are holding USB sticks. Gordon and Harriet will be holding the manifesto.
Not the manifesto, you're not holding the
Actually,
manifesto.
no. I am Gordon. I am Gordon.
Okay.
And the V goes like this.
Everyone looking straight ahead, please.
It's a combination of serious substance and having something sensible and grown up to say, and it's not facile. It has real content, but it's done with a certain charm. You know, it works. Well, I know. But it was like a sort of public meeting. I mean, it was a cross between a press conference and a public meeting, and a sort of university tutorial. it's a good formula.
Manchester, in the heart of the northwest of England, is tonight host to a British political first. Live in front of a representative studio audience, we'll be hearing from three men, each hoping to be the leader of the next UK government in the first election debate. Good evening and welcome.
Come to say something to you.
What?
Peter, that's very gay.
Yes, I know. I think you gave it to me.
I did not give it to you.
Did you get that, Alistair? Well, let's start off. Hey. What? This thing. Is it half eight? Yeah.
Can I have something to eat?
Are you lonesome? You're not having me doing my opposite.
Oh, come on.
No.
Please.
I do them all the time, too. What are you doing, anyway?
I'm doing a film about him.
Oh, for God's sake, honestly, really.
Go on, get him.
Oh, for God's sake, what, the Peter Mandelson show?
I'm incredibly nervous. I feel sick.
I'm here to persuade you that there is an alternative. I think we have a fantastic opportunity to do things differently for once. And if we do things differently, we can create the fair society, the fair country we all want. We can do something different this time. That's what I'm about. That's what the Liberal Democrats offer.
You said nothing. You said nothing.
Now, every promise you hear from each of us this evening depends on one thing: a strong economy. And this is the defining year. Get the decisions right now, and we can have secure jobs, we can have standards of living rising, and we can have everybody better off.
That's the sort of change, that's the sort of leadership I would bring to our nation. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your contributions to this, our first debate. The end of a historic moment in television and political history. Very good night to you.
There's nothing more Mr. Cameron has to say or do. They've won the election already. It's precisely that sort of arrogance, that sense of entitlement that Mr. Cameron exudes, which is, I'm afraid, was not enough to get him through this debate tonight.
Prime Ministerial. I thought Gordon Brown was desperate in the first 2 weeks.
52 Clegg, 30 Brown, 16 Cameron. I mean, that's what it was. What was that? He was bloody. He was outstanding.
He's the only person you've got to talk to, George.
Yeah, but I've got licorice also.
Ben, tell George what to say. Go on, no, George, don't be put off your stride. Please, go on.
Don't rise to him. Don't rise to him. Don't rise to him. It's all right. It's all right.
You did brilliantly, and we have also spun you brilliantly. Ignore the opinion polls or whatever. You have some way to claw back with the public, and you started doing that today, and you did it very well. The format works for you. That's the main thing for you to take away from tonight. It works for you. There are certain adjustments you can make in tone or style or whatever, and all those can be programmed in. But the fact is, the format works for you. The longer you go, the more serious, the more substantial you become. And for Cameron, he just comes across as what he is. He's a born populist who empathises with every audience he talks to. But when you ask the second and the third question of him, behind the veneer, there simply is not enough for Cameron to give. And that's what started to be revealed tonight. And that's why the debate has succeeded in opening up the election.